Hey, everybody. Today I want to talk to you about Hamlet. Okay, let me see if I can move my screen. There we go. Hi, you can see me now. Hi. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you guys about Hamlet. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit short. This is just an introduction, and I'm not going to read this PowerPoint to you. You can read as well. Uh, there are a bunch of pictures on here. I use the Mel Gibson version of Hamlet, the movie, as kind of my visual guide. However, this year we will not be looking at the Mel Gibson version, so any live action pictures, you can just ignore those. They're just frame of reference anyway. So here we go. It kind of helps get the idea of Hamlet if you're familiar with Disney's The Lion King, because The Lion King borrows very, very heavily from Shakespeare's Hamlet. So, that being said, there are a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. So, let me run you through the general plot. Okay, so before the play even begins, Hamlet Sr., the former king of Denmark, is dead. Hamlet Jr., our story's main character, is terribly in grief about it. He loved his father, and he's so engrieved by it that he's actually kind of suicidal. Um, and he has to have his friends talk him off the ledge, uh, figuratively speaking, quite often. And so, anyway, as Hamlet's moping about the loss of his father's ghost comes to him and says, "Hey, son, your uncle who took my throne is the one who killed me. You need to get revenge for my death." Now, Hamlet is enraged by this, and he concocts a plot to figure out what's going on. Because here's the problem. Um, it's a ghost talking to him, and as far as Hamlet knows, this ghost could be a demon trying to trick him into killing his own uncle. So Hamlet needs to figure out if this ghost is actually his father's ghost and if the ghost is telling the truth. So Hamlet devises a plan. He needs to get close enough to his uncle Claudius in order to figure out whether or not Claudius actually killed his father before he can decide whether or not he needs to actually kill Claudius like the ghost commanded. So he thinks about it and he's like, well, the best way that I can get close to somebody without them suspecting anything is for them to think that I'm completely nuts. Because nobody is going to suspect the crazy guy. So I'm going to pretend to be crazy so that I can sneak around the castle doing whatever I want and listening to whoever I want, and nobody will think twice about it. So that's what he does. He pretends to be crazy. Not only that, but he actually gets a little meta here. Shakespeare gets a little meta here, and he has Hamlet write a script for a play and perform this play in front of his mother and in front of his uncle. And this play is, as he says, the thing that will catch the conscience of the king. So Hamlet writes a play in which the main character kills his brother in order to become king, which is exactly what the ghost said Hamlet's uncle did. So Hamlet writes this play and he forces his uncle to watch this play about a man who kills his brother to become king. And he watches his uncle very carefully during this play in order to see his reaction. Well, once Claudius, his uncle, uh, reacts to the play very strongly, Hamlet knows that the ghost was telling the truth and that his uncle is, in fact, guilty of fratricide, as in murdering your brother. So Hamlet now knows that he has to do what the ghost says and get revenge because his uncle just killed his dad, and he's got proof. Here's the problem, though. Claudius now knows that Hamlet knows. So the rest of the play is Claudius and Hamlet trying to outmaneuver one another to kill one another without the rest of the country being any wiser. Because one is the king and one is the prince. It's not like they can just go and stab each other because the kingdom would kind of be upset. So they have to do it very stealthily, very sneaky. So, pretty interesting, I think. And so there are some major themes that run throughout this play, and here are the four biggest ones. The biggest one is revenge. Okay, Hamlet was ordered by the ghost of his father to get revenge for his father's murder by Hamlet's uncle. And so Hamlet spends much of this play dragging his feet, trying to figure out whether or not this ghost is telling the truth or not, so that he knows whether or not he needs to actually get revenge. Now, he's not the only one out for revenge. There are multiple other characters out for revenge as well throughout the course of this play, because here's the problem. The things that happen in this play, just like in real life, actions have consequences. And as Hamlet reacts or acts or doesn't react or doesn't act, those actions have consequences. And other people will get caught in the crosshairs and get hurt or even killed, which will lead to other people wanting to get revenge. And so it kind of snowballs from there. Appearance versus reality. Hamlet's going to pretend to be insane so that he can get closer to Claudius and spy on him. Claudius is going to try to outmaneuver Hamlet and give false pretenses. He's going to have people spying on Hamlet. There's going to be people spying on Claudius. There's going to be people spying on each other. Everybody's spying on each other, and nobody's really acting truthfully because they're all trying to outmaneuver one another very sneakily. Sanity versus insanity. Well, Hamlet spends a large portion of this play pretending to be insane. Well, here's the problem. He's got to do this 24/7. And from the beginning of the play to the end of the play, it's speculated that we're talking about a 9-month or so time period. So Hamlet's told about this early on in the play. And so for 8 or 9 months, Hamlet is pretending to be insane 24/7. And he's got to do it 24/7 because he doesn't know who's watching him at any given moment. Well, as you can imagine, if you pretend to be insane 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 8 months, it's going to start to wear on your actual sanity. And, well, let's face it, Hamlet actually starts to kind of go insane. And a lot of scholars, a lot of critics speculate as to whether or not Hamlet is actually going insane or still just pretending. And I'll leave that up to you to decide. And then the last is decay versus corruption. There is a lot of corruption in the court. The king killed his brother in order to take the throne. There's a lot of decay as far as people's mental state and people's sense of right and wrong and whatnot. And we'll delve more into that one later. Okay, so I'm going to briefly kind of go through these characters. Claudius, this is your king, your current king as the play starts. So if you're thinking about Lion King, this would be Scar. Unlike Lion King, where we get a sense of Mufasa and how he was as a king and whatnot, this play actually begins after Mufasa or King Hamlet has already been killed. So Scar is already in charge. Claudius is already in charge when the play starts. Now, he is ruthless. He's a killer of his own brother. But he's no idiot. He may be the bad guy, but he's no idiot. He's smart. He's very good with politics. In fact, like him or hate him, he actually is a really pretty powerful, pretty potent, pretty good king. Now, good as in like efficient, not good as in like morally good. Okay, Gertrude. This is Hamlet's mother. I think her name was Sarabi in The Lion King. This is Hamlet's mother. Now, here's the gross part. She actually falls in lust. I don't say love. She falls in lust with her brother-in-law, Claudius. And so when he kills his brother in secret and takes over the throne, she has a choice. She can step down as the queen mother, or she can marry her brother in law and retain her title, retain her throne. Now, you could say that she does this out of political duty or whatever, but as you see through the play, she actually is digging her brother in law. She kind of has a crush on him. In fact, not kind of. She actually has a very gross, very inappropriate schoolgirl crush on her brother in law. Gross, right? Well, she's also very naive and too trusting. Hamlet, he is the Prince of Denmark. He is the son of the former king. He is, if you're thinking Lion King, this would be Simba. He's incredibly intelligent. He's incredibly driven. He's kind of one track minded. He's extremely loyal. But he does have some character flaws. And his two biggest character flaws, number one, his procrastination. And we'll delve more into that as we study it. And number two, his other big character flaw is that he kind of expects a lot out of others. You know, if he's one of those types of people where if you wrong him even once, that's it for you. You and he are done. So, okay, Hamlet Sr. the Ghost. Everybody loved Hamlet Sr. When he was alive, when he was the king, everybody loved him. But now that he's dead, he's the ghost, and he comes back and he only talks to Hamlet. He's very wise, very loved. Polonius, this would be Zazu in The Lion King. This is the king's advisor, the king's trusted advisor. He's kind of a moron. He's one of those types that loves the sound of his own voice and loves to give advice whether you want it or not. He's extremely talkative. He's the type of person where he'll use 500 words when 2 will do. Ophelia, she is the daughter. Now, here's where it gets weird for The Lion King. This would be Nala in The Lion King, but in the play Hamlet, she is actually the daughter of this guy, right here, Zazu. So she is the daughter to the king's advisor. She is Hamlet's girlfriend. She's incredibly loyal, incredibly obedient, and incredibly innocent. And that's all I'll say about her. I don't want to ruin anything. Okay, Laertes. This is Nala's brother. So he is the brother to Nala or Ophelia and the son of Polonius. So here's Laertes. He is the son of Polonius and the brother to Ophelia. And if you're thinking about Lion King, he would be represented by the hyenas. He is kind of like the polar opposite of Hamlet. Whereas Hamlet takes his time and drags his feet, Laertes is quick to action. In fact, almost too quick to action. He is intelligent and cunning, just like Hamlet, but unlike Hamlet, he's very quick to action. This is Horatio. This is Hamlet's best friend, or as far as we can tell. He's a scholar. He's incredibly intelligent, very loyal, very wise. He is the only one in the play that Hamlet truly trusts. And you could know him better as Rafiki in The Lion King. Okay. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. These guys are kind of the comic relief of the play. You might know them better as Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they are childhood buddies of Hamlet, and they are sent by the king. See, when Hamlet starts to pretend to go nuts, the king is very suspicious, because remember, King Claudius, he's no dummy, and he starts to suspect that maybe Hamlet is pretending. So he hires Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to, or not really hires, really just orders because he's the king, but he orders Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to spy on their childhood friend Hamlet to get to the bottom of things. Here's the problem, though. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are, they're kind of dumb. And so Hamlet gets the better of them repeatedly. Okay, so here's some basic terms. We've talked about setting and protagonist and antagonist, protagonist being the main character, antagonist being the character against them. So Hamlet would be the protagonist, and Claudius would be the antagonist. Now, in a five-act structure of a play, typically, here's what you have. Act one sets up the conflict, sets up things that you need to know. Act two gives us rising action. Act three is your climax, where stuff hits the fan. Act four is falling action from that climax. And then Act five is resolution. And this play is no different, it follows that same structure. Um, a soliloquy and a monologue. So this play has both. Okay. Soliloquy is basically where a character like Hamlet will speak directly to the audience so that the audience knows what that character is thinking. See, when you're watching a play on stage, you can't get into their thoughts, you can't read their thoughts. So they tell you directly. They turn and face the audience and tell you directly what they're thinking. And only you can hear it. The other actors, the other characters on stage can't hear it. A monologue is a long winded speech by a main character where all the other characters can hear it. Okay, so on this slide, basically all you really need to know is that this is a Greek tragedy where the main character has a fatal flaw that leads to their downfall. Hamlet's procrastination and his inaction will lead to his downfall, to his ruin. Now, it may not lead to his death. I won't spoil that for you, but it will lead to things going bad for him, for things going very, very south for Hamlet. If only he hadn't procrastinated. Just some basic historical context. You know, they always say, write what you know, and Shakespeare wrote what he knew. Um, there was a lot of stuff going on in Shakespeare's time, and some of that stuff kind of seeped its way into this particular play. There's a lot of political turmoil going on in this play that is reflective of Shakespeare's actual time period when he was alive. So, some basic things about typical belief systems of people during this time period of Shakespeare. Um, Order led to reason, reason led to virtue, and love was an ideal. Lust was a rejection. So people were not supposed to follow their lust, they were supposed to fall in love, which is why when the queen falls in lust with her brother in law, not only is it gross because it's her brother in law, but it's gross to everybody, Hamlet included, because it's lust. And you weren't supposed to follow your lust, you were supposed to follow love. Ghosts. A lot of people during Shakespeare's time believed in ghosts and believed that ghosts were omens, whether good or bad, that they either led to good news or bad news, and it was up to you to figure out which was which. Okay. And the rest of this you can pretty much read vocabulary and understanding his language. I always thought it kind of helped to understand Shakespeare. If you thought of it like Yoda, you know, he often spoke in kind of that broken sentence kind of fragmentation. Um, and there were three different things that Shakespeare did. You know, one was he would, words back then don't mean what they mean today. He would often also invent words that didn't exist at the time. Um, he would often also pretty up his language by using figurative language, so things are not necessarily meant to be taken literally. Um, we'll practice with that when we get to it. And then, last but not least, given the language barrier between then and now, words shift meanings over time, and Shakespeare's language is no different. There's words that he used that no longer carry the same meaning these days. So, these are just some things that we'll talk about as we get further along. So, I hope you enjoy this play. Like I said, it's one of my absolute favorites. It might help to watch The Lion King, the cartoon version, not the crappy live action remake, just to kind of get familiar with